Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in today. So today we're going to talk about some potential biological differences in people who are diagnosed with OCD versus people who are not diagnosed with OCD. So we all know that everyone experiences, intrusive, random, strange thoughts. Most people are able to dismiss these thoughts from their consciousness and move on. But sometimes these random thoughts get stuck in the brains of individuals with OCD. So recent neuroimaging technologies, so that's like when pictures of the brain are taken, and so pictures of the brain and its functioning are seen in these images. So this way, researchers have been able to demonstrate that certain areas of the brain function differently in people with OCD compared with those who have not been diagnosed with OCD. So research findings suggest that OCD symptoms may involve communication errors among different parts of the brain, including the orbitofrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, the striatum, and the thalamus. So I know those are like some crazy words, but I thought I would show you guys a picture of the areas that I was just talking about. And I am technologically challenged, so I don't know how to bring this up on my screen, so I just printed it out and I'm just going to point them out for you. So this light purple area here is the frontal cortex. The dark purple strip right here is the orbitofrontal cortex. This blue part right here is the anterior cingulate cortex. This red guy right here is the thalamus, and this green section, it's labeled here as the basal ganglia, but that is also called the striatum. So abnormalities in neurotransmitter systems, so that means like chemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, glutamate, and possibly some others. So these chemicals send messages between brain cells, and they are expected to also be involved in an OCD diagnosis. So although it has been established that OCD does have a neurobiological basis, research has been unable to point to any definitive cause or causes of OCD. So yeah, I just want to kind of mention that. It's really important that we recognize that there is, this is all kind of like preliminary research, and we still don't have any certain causes of OCD. So it's believed that OCD is likely the result of a combination of neurobiological, genetic, behavioral, cognitive, and environmental factors that trigger the disorder in a specific individual at a specific point in time. So how do we know about these differences in the brain? So a PET scan, which stands, so it's a PET, that stands for positron emission tomography. So a PET scan is an imaging test that can help reveal the metabolic or biochemical function of your tissues and organs. So it uses a radioactive drug, also called a tracer, and it's injected into your bloodstream, and it shows both normal and abnormal metabolic activity. So a PET scan is often used to detect abnormal metabolism in certain diseases before that disease even shows up on other imaging tests, such as a CT scan, which stands for computerized tomography, and an MRI, which is a magnetic resonance image. So here I'm going to show you a picture of a PET scan so this compares a normal control brain. So this person has not been diagnosed with OCD. And this is a picture, this is a PET scan of a person who has been diagnosed with OCD. So as you can see, the patient with OCD is experiencing a lot of hyperactivity in the orbitofrontal cortex. So this is an image taken from like the top down. So this is like the top of the person's head. So this would be like the front of the brain. And that kind of matches up to the areas that I pointed out here, in which OCD seems to be mostly in which the brain seems to be mostly affected in patients with OCD. So, like I said, this person is obviously experiencing hyperactivity in the orbitofrontal cortex as compared, obviously, to the control patient. So this excessive metabolic activity could generate an overabundance of error detection signals. So this results in patients with OCD experiencing repetitive and unrelenting feelings that something is always wrong. So some research also points to a possible genetic component in an OCD diagnosis. So about 25% of OCD sufferers have an immediate family member with the disorder. Twin studies have indicated that if one twin has OCD, the other is more likely to have OCD when the twins are identical rather than fraternal. So overall, studies of twins with OCD estimate that genetics contributes approximately 45 to 65% of the risk for developing the disorder. So according to the cognitive model of OCD, like I mentioned before, everyone experiences intrusive thoughts. People with OCD, however, misinterpret these thoughts as being very, very important, personally significant, revealing about their individual character, or having these catastrophic consequences. So this repeated misinterpretation of these intrusive thoughts leads to the development of the obsessions, which then leads to the development of compulsions. So stress and parenting styles are environmental factors that have been blamed for causing OCD, but no research has ever shown that stress or the way a person has interacted with his or her parents during childhood necessarily causes OCD. But we do know that stress can be a factor in triggering OCD in someone who is already predisposed to it. And we also know that OCD symptoms can worsen in times of severe stress. So there is an international group called the Obsessive-Compulsive Cognitions Working Group, and it is a group of researchers who have proposed that the onset and maintenance of OCD are associated with maladaptive interpretations of cognitive intrusions. So basically, these are, maladaptive interpretations of these thoughts that enter our mind. And so they have identified 6 types of dysfunctional beliefs that are commonly associated with OCD. And these will definitely sound familiar to anybody who has any type of experience with OCD. So number 1 is inflated responsibility. So that is a belief that one has the ability to cause and or is responsible for preventing negative outcomes. Number 2 is the overimportance of thoughts. So this is the belief that having a bad thought can influence the probability of the occurrence of a negative event, or that having a bad thought is morally equivalent to actually doing it. Number 3 is control of thoughts. So this is the belief that it is both essential and possible to have total control over one's own thoughts. Number 4 is the overestimation of threat. So that is the belief that negative events are very probable and that they will be particularly bad. Number 5 is perfectionism. So that is, obviously the belief that one cannot make any mistakes and that any imperfection is unacceptable. And number 6 is intolerance for uncertainty. So this is the belief that it is essential and possible to know without a doubt that negative events will not happen. So yeah, in sum, although we, like I mentioned before, we still do not know any definitive causes of OCD, but there is, always new research coming out that produces new evidence that can hopefully lead us to some more answers about what causes OCD, and then hopefully with those answers we will be better able to treat it. So thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions or comments or anything, I'm going to put my email down in the description, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.